Hi everyone, and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin. There was a time before sight. Before the first shimmer touched a living cell, the world was blind, and everything floated in the dark like forgotten dreams. But then came light, not the fierce light of fire, not yet, but the pale shimmer that slipped through water and kissed the surface of single-celled life. It didn't matter what it showed. What mattered was that it changed things. Something inside those tiny lives began to stir, to turn, to follow. And that moment, gentle and quiet, was the beginning of seeing. Our story is not about eyes alone. It's about what darkness teaches when light fades away. When the world goes dim, it doesn't go silent. It whispers. And some creatures, shaped slowly by time and patience, have learned how to listen with their eyes. Inside the head of a cat, there's a secret. A soft green glow behind the eye that reflects the moonlight back into the world. Tapetum lucidum. It sounds like a spell. And maybe it is. This thin layer, hidden just behind the retina, works like a second chance at sight. When light enters the cat's eye, most of it is caught by the rods, those delicate structures that sense brightness but not colour. But what escapes, what passes through, is not lost. It touches the tapetum, bounces, and returns for another try. That's why cat eyes glow at night. It's not just light leaving, it's light finding its way home. But cats are not alone. The night is full of glowing eyes, foxes, raccoons, deer, even spiders. Each one tells a story written in millions of years, a story of how darkness is not emptiness. It's a different kind of world, one that favours patience over colour, movement over shape. Take the owl, whose eyes do not roll or shift like ours. They are fixed, wide, heavy with purpose. To see better, it must move its neck, not its gaze, and when it sees deeply, not in the way we think of clarity, but in a quiet hunger for light. Its retina is crowded with rods, so many more than we have, and that they wait in stillness for the faintest glimmer. A rustle in the grass, a shadow across the snow, a breath. But perhaps one of the oldest masters of the night is the horseshoe crab. Its eyes are ancient, built before bones were common. Instead of rods and cones, its eyes are filled with cells that catch light through stacked layers, like a staircase of shimmer. It has been walking the shores for hundreds of millions of years, watching tides come and go, watching the moon grow fat and thin again. And then there are those who have no need for eyes at all. Deep below the ocean's skin, where sunlight dies before it arrives, some creatures carry their own stars. Bioluminescence is not vision, but it is a kind of seeing, a flashlight held up in an endless tunnel. The anglerfish glows not just to light the dark, but to invite others into its world, to hunt, to live. What is it then to see in the dark? Is it just biology? Just a trick of mirrors and rods and shapes? Or is it something gentler? A lesson written into flesh by long nights and cold winds. A letter whispered by evolution to the creatures who refuse to fear the absence of light. Our own eyes hold shadows of this story. Though built for daylight, they adapt when darkness falls. The iris opens wide, the rods take over, colours fade, but movement remains. We become still. We blink more slowly. The world softens. Long ago, when early humans sat beside fires, watching the dark press against the light, their eyes changed too. Slowly, carefully, they learned to see not just with clarity, but with imagination. The flicker of movement became a story. The glint of a predator's eyes became a god. And through it all, vision wasn't just survival, it was wonder. So tonight, if you find yourself in the quiet hours, let your eyes adjust slowly, let the shapes come back, let the world soften. There is beauty there, in the hush of shadows, in the way trees become silhouettes, in the soft gleam of stars reflected in a puddle. The dark has always been waiting, not to hide things, but to show them more gently. Let's drift deeper now, past the surface shimmer and into the heart of vision. The science of seeing in darkness is not about perfection, it is about adaptation. Every creature who has shaped its life beneath the stars has done so not by conquering the night, but by learning to move with it. And that learning lives not in the brain first, but in the eye, in the soft tissue that remembers what sunlight forgets. There are two main kinds of photoreceptor cells in the human eye: rods and cones. The cones are the ones we use in daylight. They are colour-sensitive, precise, detail-loving, but at night, it's the rods that rise. There are about 20 million rods in each eye, and they sit mostly around the edge of the retina, watching the periphery. They do not see colour. They do not care for fine lines. What they care about is light, just light, and how much of it there is. They are the watchers in the dim, the quiet guardians of Twi. There are two main kinds of photoreceptor cells in the human eye: rods and cones. The cones are the ones we use in daylight. They are colour-sensitive, precise, detail-loving, but at night it's the rods that rise. There are about 20 million rods in each eye, and they sit mostly around the edge of the retina, watching the periphery. They do not see colour. They do not care for fine lines. What they care about is light, just light, and how much of it there is. They are the watchers in the dim, the quiet guardians of the twilight. But some animals have taken this design further. Their rods are bigger, denser, faster. They don't just detect light. They stretch the moment between photons, waiting longer for one to arrive, like a child watching the night sky for a single falling star. In the eyes of the tarsier, a small primate from Southeast Asia, the ratio of eye to head is extraordinary. Their eyes are so large they cannot rotate in the socket. Instead, the entire head turns to follow movement, and in those eyes, the rods do their ancient work, catching every whisper of motion. In the deep jungle, where moonlight falls like dust, the tarsier does not need much to see. It needs only enough. Evolution's love letter to the night isn't just about eyes that see. It's about the ways those eyes learn. Some animals develop vertical slit pupils like cats and snakes, which allow them to judge distance with shocking accuracy, even in low light. Others, like goats and deer, have horizontal pupils that stretch across the eye like a painter's brushstroke, giving them a panoramic view of the world. This isn't just science, it's storytelling in shape and curve. It's biology shaped by hunger, escape, survival, and some, like the frog, have mirror-like crystals behind their retinas. These crystals reflect light back through the rods, giving the eye a second chance to capture what it missed. It's like rewriting a sentence with better words, refining the image, making the message clearer. Night vision is not just about seeing, it's about making sense of what the light barely tells us. But let's not forget our own ancestors, who once lived without electric light. Their eyes, though shaped much like ours today, were trained by firelight and starlight. They could walk forests under the moon, hunt by the hush of leaves, tell stories by the flicker of flame. Their rods worked harder then, and so did their imaginations, because when we see less, we often feel more. A rustle might be wind or wolf. A shadow might be a branch or something waiting. The dark invited them to guess, to wonder, to believe. And while their eyes learned to see at night, their minds learned to paint the unseen. The first stories were shaped in darkness, not just about it. Caves became theatres. Flickering torches turned still shapes into dancing forms. Shadows told of spirits. Stars became maps. And all the while, the rods in their eyes listened to the dark and whispered truths the cones would never know. There is science in this, yes, but there is also poetry, because what the eye cannot fully see, the mind completes. The night does not give us less. It gives us mystery, and mystery is the birthplace of learning. When the lights are off, we listen differently. We move more slowly. We wait. Consider the dolphins, whose world is not touched by full darkness or light, but the shifting play of sun through water. Their eyes adapt between bright surfaces and the gloom below, pupils narrowing to slits in the sun and opening wide in the murk. Or think of bats, who rely not just on vision but on echoes. Yet their eyes still work, especially in dim light. They have traded colour for contrast and detail for shape. For them, the night is not black, it is textured. In every example, the lesson repeats. Evolution does not chase perfection, it sculpts possibility. It does not demand that every creature see the world the same way. It asks only that they see enough. Enough to find food, enough to find shelter, enough to find each other. And isn't that what we do too? In our cities, where streetlights glow and windows shine, we forget how to wait in the dark. But when the power fails, or when we step away from the glow, we begin to remember. Our pupils widen, our movements slow. We find a kind of rhythm in the hush. So maybe the real story of night vision is not just about what we see in the dark, but how we return to seeing at all. Not with our phones, not with floodlights, but with our bodies, with our breath, with the quiet trust that our eyes, shaped by millions of nights, still remember what the stars once meant. Close your eyes for a moment, let them rest in the dark, then open them again, gently. Let the world come back softly. The longer you wait, the more you'll see. The edges will sharpen, shapes will bloom, a glint will become a path. This is what the rods are for, this is what the night has always offered. Not blindness, but another kind of vision. Now imagine the final unfolding of this story, not as an ending, but as a soft closing of eyes under a silver moon. Evolution's letter to the night was never rushed. It took its time, brushing slowly across millennia, one gentle change after another. In the stillness of dark forests and deep caves, in the hush of starlit oceans and moon-drenched deserts, creatures became authors of their own vision. They adapted not to conquer the dark, but to live peacefully inside it. There is a fish that swims in the deepest parts of the ocean, beyond the reach of even the most determined sunlight. The brown-snout spookfish has mirror-like structures in its eyes, not lenses, but curved reflectors. These mirrors bend what little light exists and send it to the parts of the retina that need it most. In the world of endless black, it doesn't look for colour. It looks for movement, for shape, for the signature of life drifting near. In a cave, deep within the earth where no light ever reaches, live creatures who gave up vision entirely. Blind cave fish, pale and still, navigate by feel. Their skin is tuned to vibrations in water. Their brains, once partly devoted to sight, now listen instead. It's not a loss, it's a trade. Where light vanished, sensitivity bloomed. And in the absence of eyes, a different kind of seeing was born. Even in our world of lamps and screens, our biology remembers these lessons. When you walk into a dark room, your eyes begin adjusting within seconds. But full adaptation, that can take nearly half an hour. In that time, your pupils widen, your rods awaken, your cones step back. Slowly the world reappears, not as it was in daylight, but as something older. Shapes become gentle, movement becomes meaningful, the edges soften and shadows stretch into stories. This ability lives quietly within us. It waits, patient and unused, beneath the bright layers of modern life. The eye is an organ, yes, but it is also a time traveller, holding memories of forests, caves and nights spent beneath stars. It holds the soft echoes of every ancestor who paused to look toward the sky. It remembers. And what of the stars? Even they play a part in this quiet design. In the clearest skies, our eyes can see several thousand stars without aid. Not because they're bright, but because our rods, unbothered by colour, seek only contrast. They are perfect companions for the night sky. When astronomers wait in darkness before observing the heavens, they do not rush. They allow their vision to slow, to widen, to become again what it once was, ancient, tuned to the faintest glimmer. This same principle lies at the heart of something called dark adaptation, the shift your eyes make from light to darkness. It happens in two phases. First the cones fade, then the rods awaken. In the middle there is a moment where nothing is clear, where the world becomes uncertain. But if you wait, if you let your vision settle like snow in a globe, clarity returns. Not bright clarity, but the kind that whispers. That is the essence of seeing in the dark, not the sharpness of detail, but the return to trust. Trusting that your body knows how to see slowly. Trusting that not all things are meant to be lit. Some are meant to be felt, to be glimpsed. The design of every night-seeing eye reflects that. The structure of pupils, the arrangement of rods, the presence or absence of colour, all shaped by quiet needs, not loud ones. Nature never demanded that all creatures see equally. It asked only that they see what matters most in their world. And so each has found its own balance. The owl and its depth, the fox and its glint, the cave fish and its silence. There's something humbling in that. To know that sight is not one thing, but many. That darkness is not the opposite of vision, but a partner in its making. That evolution, ever patient, has not merely overcome the night, it has fallen in love with it. And perhaps we should too. Instead of fearing the dark, we might lean into it. Turn off the lights, let our homes dim. Let our eyes stretch gently into their deeper function. What might we notice then? A child sleeping in the next room, the rhythm of breath, the shadow of leaves on a curtain, the presence of something we had forgotten. For even in blindness there is meaning, and in silence there is listening. The eye that sees in the dark is not just a physical tool, it is a reminder, a whisper that we were never meant to see everything brightly. That wonder often hides in dim places. That slowness is not failure, it is grace. So tonight, when the world is quiet and the sky folds itself around your home, take a moment. Dim the lights. Step outside if you can. Let your eyes wander. Don't search for clarity. Search for softness, for outlines, for small motions at the edge of your gaze. That is where the story lives, not in brightness, but in patience. This is the love letter, written in rods and rhythms and glows and glimmers. It's not loud, it doesn't ask to be read quickly. It waits, like all good things, in the dark. Long before eyes opened to the world, long before creatures blinked at dawn or followed the sun's path, light itself was already telling stories. It shimmered across water, danced on leaves, spilled across the ocean floor. And even though no one could see it at first, the light kept speaking. Slowly, gently, its message began to change life. Not with commands or noise, but with whispers. Whispers in the cells, whispers in the retina. Whispers that would one day become vision. At the heart of this story lies something both delicate and powerful, the retina. A thin sheet of cells no thicker than paper, yet layered with ancient intelligence. It sits at the back of every eye like a quiet painter, waiting to be brushed by photons. When light enters the eye, it passes through a clear lens and strikes this canvas, where cells lie ready, not just to receive light, but to interpret it, to make sense of it, to turn it into sight. The first creatures to respond to light didn't have eyes. They were simple, just patches of cells sensitive to brightness. These light-detecting spots didn't show images. They told time. They helped decide when to rise, when to rest. Over time, those patches became more complex. They folded into cups, deepened into hollows, began to focus. The simple became layered. The layered became alive. And the eye, as we know it, began to form. In the human eye, the retina holds two main kinds of light-sensing cells, rods and cones. Cones gather colour and thrive in brightness. They come in three types, each tuned to a different wavelength, red, green and blue. Together they let us see the blush of sunset, the shimmer of leaves, the deep velvet of shadow. Rods, on the other hand, gather light itself. They don't see colour. They see in grayscale, in softness, in twilight. They are the quiet watchers of the world after the sun slips away. This layered dance between rods and cones is ancient. It's not just about what we see. It's about how we've learned to see it. Every beam of light that strikes the retina doesn't just stop, it starts a journey. First, it meets photoreceptor cells, which catch the light and convert it into tiny electrical signals. These signals then pass through layers of cells, bipolar, horizontal amacrine, each one adjusting, refining, sharpening. By the time the signal reaches the ganglion cells, the image has already been shaped. From there it travels down the optic nerve into the brain, where it becomes something more than light. It becomes meaning. But what's most remarkable is that the retina begins this process even before we are born. In the darkness of the womb, our eyes form slowly, layer by layer, in response to an outside world we cannot yet see. Some scientists believe the fetus can detect soft glows through the mother's skin, and that these early touches of light help the retina mature. Even before we open our eyes, light is preparing us to receive it, and even after birth, vision is not immediate. A newborn's sight is soft and blurred, the world a gentle smear of shadow and brightness. Over weeks and months, the retina sharpens, builds connections, learns contrast. It listens to the world in patterns and pulses. It practices turning light into understanding. This learning continues throughout life. Every glance, every blink, every sunbeam and shadow shapes the retina's delicate machinery. And when we age, it too changes. The cones may lose sharpness, the rods may grow fewer, but the memory of light remains. The retina remembers how to listen, even if what it hears becomes faint. But there's more. The retina is also a window into the brain. Because it grows from the same tissue as the brain in the embryo, some scientists call it part of the central nervous system. It's the only part of the brain we can look at directly, just by shining light into the eye. That means it doesn't just record the world, it reflects us, our health, our stories, our age and memory. Think of all that began with light, how the simple act of photons touching cells became a lifelong dialogue. It's not loud, it's not sudden, it's layered, like morning fog lifting over a valley. Light taught us to see not just the world, but ourselves within it. So tonight or tomorrow, when light touches your face, remember the whisper. Remember how gently it arrived, how patiently it waited to be understood, and how, inside your eyes, your retina still listens, still learns, still sees. Let's drift deeper into the quiet mechanics of seeing, not as a sharp act of observation, but as a soft unfolding of light into thought. The retina is more than a receiver. It is a filter, a translator, a gatekeeper between the outside world and the mind's private theatre. Light enters the eye, yes, but it does not simply shine, it speaks, and the retina, like a wise listener, chooses what to pass along and what to gently ignore. In this silent conversation between light and living tissue, every glance becomes an act of interpretation. At the centre of the retina lies a small yellow-tinted spot known as the macula, and within it the fovea. This tiny hollow holds the highest concentration of cone cells, giving us our sharpest central vision. It's how we read letters, recognise faces, and marvel at the fine veins of a leaf, but the fovea sees only a tiny portion of our view. The rest is gathered by the surrounding retina, less detailed, more intuitive, a softer landscape of light and shadow. And this balance between sharpness and softness mirrors the way we move through the world. We look straight at what we want to understand, but we feel the rest. The movement at the corner of our eye, the glow of sunset behind us, the flicker of something just beyond attention. The retina blends this all together, detail and intuition, center and edge, into one smooth experience of seeing. In nocturnal creatures, this balance shifts. Their foveas may be smaller or even absent, while their peripheries swell with rods. This gives them an astonishing ability to detect movement and light in near darkness. They don't see sharp lines or vivid colours, but they see enough to survive, enough to thrive. And yet some creatures evolve toward the opposite. The mantis shrimp, for example, boasts one of the most complex visual systems known. Its retina holds up to 16 types of photoreceptors, compared to our 3 for colour. It sees ultraviolet, polarised light, and subtle colour shifts we can't imagine. But its world is not more colourful, just differently organised. It sees not for beauty, but for communication, for threat, for mating. Every retina is shaped by need, and every need is a reflection of environment. Even in humans, the retina tells different stories depending on context. A person who reads all day wears down their cones. A person who walks under stars strengthens their rods. A person who loses one form of sight may find others growing. The brain, fed by the retina, adjusts. The visual cortex, where sight becomes awareness, reshapes itself constantly. It is not fixed, it flows. But light doesn't just show us what's outside, it also shapes what happens within. The retina is our primary gatekeeper of circadian rhythm, the daily cycle of waking and sleeping. Inside it lie cells that don't see in the usual way. They don't care about shape or colour. Instead, they detect brightness and send signals to the brain's internal clock. These cells, called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells, keep us in sync with the sun. When morning light reaches them, they reset our clocks. When night falls, they help release melatonin, the hormone of rest. In this way, the retina doesn't just help us see the day, it makes us live it. Disrupt this rhythm by staring at screens late into the night or living under artificial lights, and the body begins to forget what time it is. Sleep falters, mood shifts, hormones stumble. The simple act of light meeting retina shapes every breath we take. That's why sleep experts advise blue light filters, warm lighting after sunset, and morning sunlight as medicine. It's not just about vision, it's about harmony. And sometimes the retina whispers even more personal messages. In medicine, it can reveal early signs of disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, even Alzheimer's. Tiny changes in blood vessels or light response patterns may show the first clues, long before symptoms arrive elsewhere. In this way, the retina is not only a window to the world, but a mirror to ourselves. It holds the memory of light, but also the memory of change. In art, the retina becomes the gateway to wonder. Painters, photographers, filmmakers, all work not with objects, but with light. They rely on the retina's sensitivity, its timing, its thresholds. A single flash of colour, a fading shadow, a soft focus. These are not tricks, they are collaborations, the artist and the eye dancing quietly, letting light become feeling. Children especially see the world with retinas unburdened by expectation. Their eyes capture more brightness, more saturation. Their brains haven't yet decided what to ignore. Everything is interesting. A flicker becomes magic. A sparkle becomes a mystery. As we grow, we learn to filter, but the retina still catches it all. It's the brain that decides what to notice. And so we might wonder, what have we stopped seeing? What delicate shifts of light slip past our attention, filtered out by habit? What secrets does the retina still whisper, waiting for us to pause and listen? If you close your eyes now gently, you might still see soft bursts of colour, not real images, but phosphenes, shapes formed by the cells in your retina, responding to pressure or memory. Even in darkness, the retina flickers. It remembers. It waits. It's always been listening. From the first time sunlight touched the surface of a single cell, through the long journey of evolution, to the moment you looked up today and squinted against the sky, the retina has been there, catching, sorting, translating, giving you the world in a language you didn't have to learn. All you had to do was open your eyes. Let us now follow this story to its quiet close, not with a final answer, but with a lingering breath, like the moment just before twilight turns to night. The retina, that thin, patient surface at the back of the eye, is not just an organ. It is a recorder of light, a sculptor of experience, and a silent teacher of time. It has no voice, and yet it teaches us how to see the world and ourselves within it, not with force, but with grace. For every moment we open our eyes, it is the retina that steps forward first, holding out its hand to light. Consider how effortlessly we wake and see, how we turn our heads toward a window and receive the morning not just as brightness, but as mood. The retina is responsible for this quiet transition. Its cells do not simply detect photons, they participate in the making of a feeling. The shift from night to day is not merely a change in visibility, it is a transformation in body and soul, led by this sheet of layered cells no thicker than a strand of hair. And still, it works in the background. It never demands our attention. It flickers and adjusts, adapts and balances, so we can see a familiar face in a crowd or a pet's eyes in low light. When we cry, our vision blurs. When we laugh in the sun, our eyes narrow, and the colours around us sharpen. The retina takes it all in, quietly, without asking for thanks. But it is always there, between light and meaning. Even the colour of what we see is shaped by the retina's choices. Red and green, for example, rely on two kinds of cone cells that, in some people, overlap too much, creating colour blindness. But this is not a flaw. It is a variation in the way light is translated. Some artists with colour blindness see the world in ways others do not, creating art that captures contrast and pattern with extraordinary sensitivity. The retina, in all its forms, offers not limits, but lenses. Then there is motion. What seems smooth to us is actually a flickering dance. The retina breaks images into rapid snapshots, processing movement in ways the conscious brain could never keep up with. It helps us follow a bird in flight, catch a ball in the air, or simply walk through a crowded room. And even when the eye jumps from one point to another in fast saccades, the retina's communication with the brain fills in the blanks, creating the illusion of continuity. It is not just a camera, it is a storyteller. But there is also something tender in the way it rests. In darkness, the retina slows. It waits. The rods begin to rise again. The cones take their rest. And as the world softens into shadows, our vision becomes not less. It becomes different, more sensitive, more open to movement, less focused on colour, more attuned to shape. In this slow shift, we are reminded that the retina was never meant only for brightness. It was shaped by both sun and moon, by day and night, by firelight and starlight. And in that it becomes something more than anatomy. It becomes memory. The memory of mornings and dusks, of campfires and candlelight, of eyes meeting in silence, of looking up at the sky, not to find something new, but to feel something ancient. The retina holds these echoes, not in words or images, but in sensation, in the soft truth of seeing. As we age, our retinas age too. They may blur or slow or falter, but even then they remember how to catch light. Even then they strain gently toward brightness. Some lose sight entirely, and yet the memory remains. People who become blind often report flashes of light or colour, ghosts of vision that return unbidden. These are the retina's last poems, brief, quiet stanzas written in fading light. And yet the story is not sad, it is full. For every time we saw the face of someone we love, every time we watched light pass through leaves or shimmer on water, the retina was there, translating, whispering, letting the outside world find its way inside. So what does it mean then to say that light taught us to see? It means that the world reached out to us, not just with touch or sound, but with radiance. And we responded not with words, but with vision. The retina caught those threads of brightness and wove them into experience, into memory, into meaning. The next time you close your eyes, remember that seeing is not only an act of looking, it is an act of receiving, an act of patience, an act of trust in the quiet partnership between light and biology. The retina never rushes. It waits for light to arrive, it listens for its message, it passes it on. And when you open your eyes again, remember the miracle behind that moment. Not the bright image itself, but the soft process that made it possible. A thin layer of living cells sculpted by light across time, still working in silence, still translating photons into feeling, still whispering the oldest story we know, the story of how the world taught us to see. In the stillness of night, when the world seems to pause and the light fades into hush as something stirs inside the eye, not a sudden switch, but a slow bloom, a gentle opening of the body's inner moon. You can't see it in the mirror, but it is there, tucked deep behind your gaze, waiting for the moment when darkness falls. This is not just vision adapting, it is rhythm unfolding. It is your body remembering the pull of night and the soft ticking of time hidden behind the stars. Long before humans invented clocks, we moved with the rhythm of the sun and the moon. Our bodies, like all life on Earth, came to know the language of cycles, light and dark, sleep and wake, hunger and rest. And central to this language is a hidden clock that lives not on our wrists, but in our biology. It is called the circadian rhythm, and its signals begin with light. At the heart of this system are special cells in the retina, different from rods and cones, that respond not to images, but to the presence or absence of brightness. These cells, called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells, are rare but powerful. When light touches them, they send messages to a small cluster of neurons in the brain, known as the suprachiasmatic nucleus, nestled deep in the hypothalamus. This tiny area acts like a conductor, guiding the tempo of every cell in the body. When to rise, when to sleep, when to repair, when to dream. But it doesn't act alone. It needs light to lead it, like a melody needs rhythm. Morning light tells the body it's time to wake. Evening light slows things down. Darkness signals release of melatonin, the hormone that makes us drowsy. In this way, the moon inside your eyes isn't poetic fiction. It's biology, delicate, real, and older than memory. And yet not all creatures wait for sleep when the sky darkens. For many, night is when life begins. Nocturnal animals live in harmony with the absence of light. Their bodies are tuned not to resist the dark, but to move gently within it. And their vision, soft, wide, shimmering with sensitivity, teaches us that sight does not require sunlight. It only requires readiness. In the eyes of a fox or a barn owl or a deer standing quietly among trees, you'll find the architecture of night vision. Larger pupils which gather more light, extra rod cells which detect movement in dimness, and in many a reflective layer behind the retina called the tapetum lucidum. This mirror-like structure captures what little light slips through and reflects it back to the rods for a second chance. The result is glowing eyes that shine like lanterns when caught in a beam, eyes that see not by brightness but by persistence. And then there are animals like frogs and geckos whose eyes can change dramatically between night and day. Some shift the position of their photoreceptor cells. Others change the shape of their pupils, from wide circles to narrow slits, to control light more precisely. These aren't just tricks, they're expressions of an old relationship between body and time, between need and adaptation. Even the human eye, despite being built for daylight, remembers this dance. When darkness falls, the cones that once gave us colour step back, and the rods take their place. Our pupils widen. We blink more slowly. We start to rely on contrast, not detail. In moonlight, the world appears washed in silver, not because it truly is, but because our rods, colourblind but patient, make it good, and while our physical eyes adapt, the rest of the body does too. Melatonin begins to flow, the heart rate softens, muscles relax, the brain shifts into quieter waves. It's a choreography written in light but performed best in dark. The moon inside your eyes signals to the rest of you. It's time to be still. But what happens when we ignore that signal, when we flood our homes and screens with blue light long after sunset? The rhythm stumbles, sleep becomes shallow, focus fades, moods shift, the gentle clock within begins to tick out of time. We are still connected to the sun and moon, even when we pretend otherwise. That's why for many, reconnecting with darkness feels like healing. A walk at dusk, a candle in a quiet room, the stars overhead, seen not in a hurry but in reverence. These moments realign us. They remind us that darkness is not the absence of life, it is part of its design. In the Inuit lands of the Arctic, where darkness can last for weeks, the human body learns to move differently. Eyes stretch to adjust, but so do hearts. Meals follow rhythm, not the clock. Stories grow richer, spoken in candlelight. And when the sun finally returns, it does not erase the memory of night, it honors it. The moon inside your eyes is always there whether you see it or not. It's the part of you that knows how to wait, how to move slowly, how to glow softly when the rest of the world dims. It's not just about vision, it's about rhythm, about knowing that light doesn't have to be loud to be seen. So when the evening comes and the world grows dim, don't rush to light every corner. Let your eyes adjust, let the shadows stretch, let the clocks inside you slow. There is something sacred in that pause, a softness that doesn't need to be fixed, just felt. Let's move more gently now into the layered world of time inside the body, the rhythm that doesn't tick with hands or numbers, but with light and sleep and the slow rise of hormones in the blood. The moon inside your eyes does more than help you see in the dark, it shapes your days from the inside out. Every organ in your body listens to this rhythm, every cell dancing to its quiet pulse. It is the oldest music you know, and it begins with light. This rhythm is not random, it is circadian, from the Latin circa diem, meaning about a day. And though it is shaped by the sun, it lives inside you, running even in total darkness. Scientists have tested this by placing people in caves or rooms without clocks or windows. They sleep and wake, eat and rest, not by habit or routine, but by something deeper, a rhythm written in light-sensitive genes and carried out by cells that remember the time even without seeing the sky. At the centre of this rhythm is the suprachiasmatic nucleus, a tiny structure in the brain just above where the optic nerves cross. It contains about 20,000 neurons, and together they form the master clock of the body. This clock is reset each morning when the light of day touches the retina. That signal travels directly from the eye to the nucleus, and from there it spreads like a gentle wave across the body, telling the liver to begin digesting, telling muscles to prepare for movement, telling the heart to rise and fall in sync with wakefulness. The light that touches your skin in the morning is not just brightness, it is medicine. It clears the sleep from your blood. It reduces the hormone melatonin and increases cortisol just enough to make you alert, focused, ready. And as the day progresses, your body follows the slope of the sun. Temperature rises, energy peaks, and later, as light fades, everything softens again. In darkness, melatonin returns like a tide. Muscles grow tired, the heart slows, and the mind begins to dream. This cycle exists in almost every living thing. Plants open leaves to the sun and fold them at night. Birds sing with sunrise and still their wings at dusk. Even fungi and bacteria show rhythms shaped by light and dark. It is not just a human story, it is a life story. The moon inside your eyes is part of something ancient and shared, something that began before clocks, before stars had names. And yet, in the modern world, this rhythm is often forgotten. The glare of artificial light, especially in blue wavelengths, can trick the retina into thinking it is still daytime. The special cells that reset our clocks don't know the difference between sunlight and a phone screen. So when we scroll late at night or sit beneath bright ceiling lights after dusk, our inner clocks shift. They delay the release of melatonin. They confuse the body. Sleep comes harder. Mornings feel heavy. Focus dims. This is why sleep researchers now speak of light hygiene, the practice of protecting your circadian rhythm by respecting light. Morning light should be bright and natural. Evening light should be warm and soft, and in the hour before bed, light should be low or gone altogether. These are not just preferences, they are instructions for how to care for the moon inside your eyes. But this moon doesn't only guide sleep, it touches emotion too. In people with seasonal affective disorder, the short days of winter bring not just tiredness, but sadness. The retina receives too little light, and the master clock begins to drift. Mood drops, energy fades, even appetite changes, but when light returns, so does balance. This is the quiet power of vision, not only to see the world, but to feel in tune with it. And there's more. Studies show that irregular sleep schedules, common among shift workers, frequent travellers, and students, can lead to metabolic strain, reduced immune response, and even changes in gene expression. This means that when your sleep is off, your entire biology feels it. The moon inside your eyes is not a decoration. It is a compass, and when it is thrown off course, your whole self feels lost. Still, there is hope. The rhythm can be reset. All it needs is time and light. A few mornings of sunrise, a few evenings without screens. A walk at dusk, a window opened wide. Slowly the moon begins to glow again. The clock resets, the body breathes in time once more, and here in this restoration lies something beautiful. You do not need to force your body to heal, you only need to step out of the way, to dim the lights when night comes, to rise when the world glows gold, to let your eyes be what they were meant to be, keepers of time, sculptors of rhythm, partners with the sky. Even your dreams follow this rhythm. REM sleep, the stage where dreams are most vivid, rises and falls with melatonin and light. If you've ever dreamed more deeply on a rainy day, or found sleep easier after time in nature, it is no accident. Your moon was speaking, your eyes had remembered. So tonight, as the dark draws in and the world grows quiet, ask yourself, what will you let your eyes receive? Will you fill them with light that rushes and blinds? Or will you let them soften? Will you let the rods rise, the cones rest, the rhythm unfold? The moon inside your eyes is not made of dust or rock. It is made of light that has been softened by darkness, and time that has been folded into the body. It is yours, and it has always known how to glow quietly. Now we come to the closing notes of this quiet song, to the part where understanding turns into trust and science becomes something soft enough to feel. The moon inside your eyes is not a symbol or a secret, it is a living process, a rhythm that has always been with you. It watches how the light touches your skin in the morning, and how darkness folds around your face at night. It speaks not in words but in timing, not in commands but in suggestion. And every time you listen, your body finds its way back to calm. What makes this so remarkable is that you don't need to think about it. Your pupils widen without asking. Your heartbeat slows when the sun dips below the horizon. Melatonin begins to flow not because you told it to, but because the dimming light told your retina a story, and your retina passed it on. The whole body hears the story of the sky through your eyes. Even your breath follows that tale, lengthening as the light fades, shortening again when morning begins. In a world that often praises brightness and speed, the moon inside your eyes offers a different wisdom. It tells you that stillness matters. That night is not a problem to fix, but a companion to walk with. The darkness around you is not empty. It's full of instructions for rest, reflection, and healing. Plants close their leaves not in defeat, but in preparation. Nocturnal animals rise not in rebellion, but in rhythm. And humans, despite all our lights, still belong to this same pattern. There's something else too, something more tender. The moon inside your eyes doesn't just shape when you sleep. It shapes how you see others. When light is low and the world is quiet, the edges between things blur. Details soften, harshness fades. In that half-seen world, your eyes are more sensitive to movement, to subtle expressions, to the gentle shimmer of emotion. People appear less as outlines and more as presences. In this way, night vision is not only physical, it is emotional. It brings with it a kind of openness that brightness often drowns. Think of all the stories told by firelight, all the truths spoken under stars, all the memories held in the hush of a dim room. These are not accidents. They are the fruits of vision slowed down, of the body returned to rhythm. The moon inside your eyes isn't just science. It's why lullabies work, why sunsets feel like closure, why silence after dusk feels like permission to begin dreaming again. And even in deep sleep, the influence of this inner moon continues. Your body enters cycles, light sleep, deep sleep, all orchestrated by the timing of light and dark. These phases are not simply rest, they are maintenance. Memories are sorted, muscles repair, emotions are balanced, and through it all, the rhythm persists, whispering to each cell, now is the time for stillness. We've tried in modern times to outpace this rhythm. We light our streets like noon. We work long into the night. We fill every dark space with screens. And yet, the body doesn't forget. It pushes back gently but insistently. It asks for rest, not with anger, but with weariness. It waits for you to return to your rhythm. And when you do, it welcomes you with soft sleep, clearer thoughts, steadier emotions. The moon never stopped shining. We just forgot to look. So how do we listen again? It begins in small ways, letting the lights dim an hour before bed, sitting near a window in the early morning, putting down the phone when the stars begin to show, walking in the cool blue of twilight without needing to see everything perfectly, trusting that your body remembers how to be in the dark, that your eyes were never afraid of it, that you, like every creature, were made not only for the sun but also for the moon. And once you begin to listen, you'll notice other things too. The way shadows stretch long before night fully arrives, the way your breathing changes when the world quiets, the way soft light feels kinder than glare. You'll start to find comfort not in constant stimulation, but in returning to the tempo of nature. That is the wisdom the moon inside your eyes offers, not productivity, but peace. You were not made to be lit all the time. You were made to rest, to see in the dark, to know that darkness is not the end of vision, but another kind of seeing, deeper, slower, more honest. The kind that doesn't rush, the kind that lets beauty unfold like the bloom of a night flower, invisible in sunlight but radiant in moonlight. So tonight, let your eyes adjust, let your body listen, let the moon inside your eyes rise quietly as it always has. Trust that it knows what to do, that even in darkness you are not lost, you are simply remembering the part of you that glows only when the world grows still. As the sun sets and the air cools, a quiet transformation begins. Not just in the sky, but in the eyes of those who wait for the dark. In the animal kingdom, there are creatures whose vision does not shrink with the fading light but expands, eyes that do not dim at dusk, but bloom like midnight flowers. These are the eyes that live by starlight, shaped not for the blaze of noon, but for the silver hush of night. And when the world turns shadowed and still, these eyes open wider, searching not for colour, but for shape, for motion, for the breath of life in the dark. Across forests, deserts, mountains, and oceans, animals have evolved in tune with the rhythms of light and dark. And for those who hunt, travel, or listen after sunset, vision had to follow suit. They didn't fight the darkness, they partnered with it. Their eyes are windows into the long patience of evolution, shaped gently by the need to move through shadows, to see without being seen, to understand the world not through clarity but through contrast. The architecture of nocturnal eyes tells the story. Large pupils, round and wide, allow more light to enter. In some species, like the slow-moving lemur or the nimble civet, the pupil can expand to nearly the full size of the iris, maximizing every scrap of light the moon offers. Behind the retina sits the tapetum lucidum, a mirror-like layer that reflects any light not initially absorbed back through the photoreceptors, giving the eye a second chance. It's this reflective layer that causes the eerie glow you see in a cat's eyes at night, a shimmer that reveals not just biology, but brilliance. These eyes are rich in rod cells, which are highly sensitive to light. While cone cells help detect colour and fine detail in bright conditions, rods dominate in the dark. They're not concerned with hue or sharpness. They care about movement. They alert the animal to the slightest shift, the twitch of a leaf, the ripple of water, the flicker of fur at the edge of vision. In darkness, detail fades, but life still pulses, and these eyes are trained to feel it. Owls, with their forward-facing eyes and round faces, are among the most gifted of the night seers. Their eyes are not spherical like ours, but tubular, extending deep into the skull. This shape allows a larger image to be formed, enhancing low-light vision, though it comes at the cost of mobility. To compensate, the owl's neck is a marvel, able to rotate up to 270 degrees, and when they fly, their eyes stay locked, motionless, absorbing every flicker of the landscape. The forest is no longer dark to them, it is illuminated by instinct and silence. Then there are animals like the tarsier, whose eyes are so large in proportion to its body that they cannot rotate at all. Instead, the head turns with great agility. Each of its eyes is heavier than its brain and packed with more rod cells than any other known mammal. In the dim canopies of Southeast Asia, these primates leap from tree to tree, seeing clearly what we would miss entirely. Their world is drawn in shadows, but filled with meaning. Even underwater, vision bends to the dark. Deep-sea creatures live in eternal night, where sunlight never touches. Their eyes adapt in ways strange and wondrous. Some fish have telescopic lenses, others have multiple retinas. The barrel-eye fish, for instance, has eyes that point upward to detect prey above, and a transparent head that lets it look through its own body. In the absence of external light, many deep-sea creatures create their own, bioluminescence pulsing in slow patterns, communication written in glows. For them, the night is not empty, it is language. And there are insects too, beetles, moths and spiders, whose compound eyes pick up faint light in fragmented, sensitive patches. Some species of moths can navigate by the angle of starlight alone. Their eyes are not sharp in the way a hawk's might be, but they are precise in motion and responsive to change. What they see is not a clear picture, but a reliable feeling of where to fly, where to land, where to hide. Each animal sees its world differently, not because one vision is better than another, but because each is shaped by a different kind of need. The desert fox doesn't need to see colour, it needs to see temperature, to sense the shift of heat on rocks. The frog doesn't need to see far, it needs to see what jumps nearby. The jungle cat needs to track prey in silence. The deer needs to detect a sudden silhouette, even if it can't name what it saw. Every pair of eyes is a map of survival. And when humans gaze into the glowing eyes of animals at night, what we're really seeing is the reflection of that evolution, a history of adaptation shining back at us, like stars in miniature. The night became a mirror, not because it showed us ourselves, but because it revealed what else had learned to thrive when we turned away. So next time you walk under a dark sky, consider the eyes that are watching quietly, the fox in the bushes, the owl above, the raccoon at the edge of the trees. Their eyes are open wide, not to overcome the night, but to become part of it. They do not wait for morning. They bloom with the moon, and through them the dark is not something to fear. It is something to see. Let us slip deeper now into the quiet heart of this night-seeing world, where biology becomes artistry, and vision unfolds not in colour or brightness, but in movement, rhythm, and presence. These animals, whose eyes glow back at us in the dark, are not curiosities. They are masterpieces sculpted by time, moulded gently by moonlight and shadow. Each one carries a different way of seeing, tuned not to clarity, but to survival, patience, and the subtle dance between light and dark. Their eyes are not just tools, they are interpretations of the world. The diversity of nocturnal vision is a map of how life reads its environment. Some creatures prioritize speed, the ability to spot and react to fleeting motion. Others value breadth, seeing a wide field even if it means less detail. Some look straight ahead, like cats and owls, their eyes set for hunting. Others, like frogs or goats, gaze sideways and wide, watching for danger from every direction. In every case, their eyes speak the language of their lives, where they live, how they feed, how they avoid harm. In the jungle, where vines twist and shadows melt into leaves, the eyes of a jaguar pierce the dark with remarkable depth perception. Its pupils narrow to tight slits during the day, preserving focus, then bloom open at night like ink dropped into water. These pupils can change size faster than those of humans, allowing the jaguar to switch between dark and bright with seamless grace. When it hunts, it doesn't need perfect resolution. It needs timing, coordination, a sense of where its prey will be a second from now. Its eyes don't freeze the moment, they glide ahead of it. On the tundra, the Arctic fox faces a different challenge. In the long, dim winters, the sun barely rises. To survive, the fox must see in near total darkness, in snowstorms, in shadowed burrows. Its eyes are adapted to amplify contrast rather than brightness. It learns to spot slight differences in texture, tiny motions against a white world. And when spring finally returns, bringing long daylight, its pupils adjust slowly, but the memory of darkness never fades. These eyes are not just cold weather survivors, they are historians of winter. But some animals don't just see in the dark, they shine in it. The firefly squid of Japan glows from within, its entire body covered in tiny light-producing organs called photophores. While not an eye itself, this glow creates contrast underwater, illuminating prey and communicating with mates. And the creatures around it, predators and competitors, have evolved to see these patterns clearly, even in blackness. Their eyes are tuned not to sunlight but to one another's signals. Here, sight is not passive, it is collaborative. There are even creatures whose eyes change with the season. The reindeer of the far north sees the world in blue-tinted contrast during the long Arctic winter. Researchers discovered that in winter, the tapetum lucidum of the reindeer shifts from a golden reflection to a deep blue, helping it detect ultraviolet light more effectively. This shift allows reindeer to better see food, threats, and trails marked by other animals, all invisible to the human eye. In summer, the reflection softens again, adapting to the return of bright light. The reindeer's eye is not one fixed thing. It is a slow, ongoing conversation with the sky. And sometimes, eyes become so specialized that they defy our understanding altogether. The scallop, a small shellfish, has over 100 eyes along the edge of its body, each containing a reflective mirror that focuses light onto two retinas. It doesn't see in the way we do, but it detects movement, shadows, and patterns in the water. This helps it react quickly to danger, closing its shell or swimming away. The scallop's vision isn't elegant by our standards, but it is effective. It sees enough to survive, which, in nature, is the highest success. All of this points to one truth. There is no single way to see. There is no one perfect eye. Each species carries a vision crafted for its place in the world. And night vision, in particular, shows us that seeing clearly doesn't always mean seeing everything. It means seeing what matters. The frog must detect sudden motion. The owl must spot the ripple of a mouse across a field. The bat, though it uses echolocation, also has eyes adapted for twilight, not full dark, because it doesn't need total night, only the softness of dusk. Evolution doesn't reward more sight, it rewards right sight. And when we look into the eyes of these animals, we might begin to feel the echo of something in ourselves. Human eyes are not made for darkness, but they carry pieces of it. Our rods awaken when light fades, our pupils widen, our gaze slows. And for those who spend time in nature, who walk in forests without flashlights, or sit beside campfires under stars, a different kind of seeing returns. We begin to feel what animals have always known, that the dark is not blindness, it is intimacy, it is focus, it is the chance to see what disappears in brightness. It's not just the glow that makes nocturnal eyes special, it's the purpose behind them. They are shaped by life lived close to the edge of visibility, where every flicker might be a meal or a threat or a signal. And instead of being overwhelmed, these eyes learn to tune out the noise. They don't look for everything, they look for what matters. So when you think of a night vision, don't imagine it as a trick or a mutation. Imagine it as a kind of listening. The eye that sees in the dark is not just watching, it is waiting. Waiting for movement, for a moment, for the soft evidence that life is near. In that way, every night-seeing animal becomes a witness to the hidden beauty of the world. Beauty that doesn't shine, but glimmers, doesn't shout, but stirs. And maybe that's what we've forgotten. That seeing clearly isn't always about light. Sometimes it's about patience, sometimes it's about stillness, sometimes it's about knowing how to wait for the moment when something small moves in the corner of your vision, and for just a second, the whole dark world comes alive. And now, as we bring this story of glowing eyes and midnight vision to a quiet close, let us pause and sit beside the silence of the forest, the hush of open fields, the still air beneath the stars. Because here, in the deep breathing of the world after dark, the final lesson becomes clear. These animals who bloom after sunset do not see the night as limitation. They do not shrink from it. Instead, they lean in. They move with it. Their eyes are shaped not against the dark, but in concert with it. Eyes born of stillness, sharpened by shadow, perfected by patience. There is something sacred in this kind of vision. Something we, as daylight seekers, have almost forgotten. In our rush for brightness, for clarity, for high-definition everything, we forget that vision was not always meant to be sharp. It was not always about counting eyelashes or reading fine print. In the beginning, vision was about knowing when to be still, when to move, when to trust the whisper of movement over the shout of form. The eyes of nocturnal animals carry this memory. Their gaze is tuned not for certainty, but for sensation. Watch the way a fox walks through moonlight, each step light, each pause long. It doesn't see the way we do, it sees enough to tell the difference between leaf and feather, between breeze and breath. The night doesn't give it details, but it gives it signs. The fox's vision isn't about what is, it's about what might be, and what might be, that's the magic. That's the thing that glows in the eyes of the night seers, because they do not see everything, they remain alert, open, attuned. Their vision's never overwhelmed because it never tries to take in too much. It stays narrow but deep, like looking into a well and trusting that something stirs beneath the surface, even if you cannot yet name it. This is the vision we sometimes find again when we stop looking too hard, when we walk at dusk without needing to see every leaf, when we let the world blur a little and listen more. That's when the deeper vision returns, the sense that the world is alive, not just in what's shown, but in what's hidden. The gleam in an animal's eyes is not just reflected light. It's the echo of a world they've learned to see without seeing fully. It's the confidence of creatures who have spent generations watching things we cannot. And perhaps most humbling of all is the way these creatures carry their sight without spectacle. They do not brag about their glow, they do not question their design. They simply do what they were shaped to do. They wait for the dark, they open their eyes, they move, they thrive. We could learn from that quiet certainty, that way of accepting the night not as a problem, but as a companion. Because the night has always been a companion. Long before cities lit up the sky, long before humans measured time by numbers. In those early ancient hours, our ancestors watched animals move where they could not. They saw eyes glow where theirs did not. And perhaps, deep in their bones, they envied it. The freedom of it, the elegance, the way it made the world feel larger, more mysterious, more alive. Even now, some of that wonder remains. We still look into the eyes of our pets at night and catch a glimmer. We still turn our heads at the shine of a deer's gaze caught in headlights. We still feel the thrill of walking through dark woods and wondering what might be watching us, not with fear, but with awe. Because somewhere in us, the memory of night-seeing lingers. Somewhere in our evolution, the rods still remember how to rise when the light fades. The pupils still remember how to open, how to wait. And when we let that happen, when we dim the lights, when we step outside without needing to see perfectly, we begin to return to a more ancient way of knowing, to a kind of sight that isn't about precision, but presence. These animals who see by night don't just teach us about biology, they teach us about surrender, about letting go of the need to see everything clearly, about trusting the body, the moment, the gentle rhythm of dusk. They remind us that seeing is not always about collecting detail. Sometimes it's about feeling your way through the dark with a calm heart and quiet eyes. So the next time you catch the moonlight shining in the eyes of a cat, or an owl perched silently on a branch, or a raccoon stepping softly across the path, pause for a moment. Let their gaze meet yours, not as a visitor, but as a fellow creature of the earth, shaped by night and light alike. And remember, the world after sunset is not emptiness. It is a mirror where the light doesn't bounce but glows from within. A mirror where vision isn't about distance but closeness. The night became a mirror the moment creatures opened their eyes to it, not to escape it, but to belong to it. And in that reflection we too might remember how to see again, not by what we shine into the world, but by what we are still enough to notice glowing back. There is a kind of silence only found in the hour after the sun sets, when colour begins to melt and the outlines of the world soften. It is not the silence of sound stopping, it's the silence of colour fading, the hush that happens not in the ears, but in the eyes. This is the time when the rods begin to rise. This is the moment when the cones step aside, and in this quiet shift, your vision becomes something older, something less bright but more aware. The world doesn't disappear, it becomes a painting in soft charcoal, a memory drawn in silver. In the centre of your eye, on the surface of the retina, two kinds of cells shape the way you see, rods and cones. They sit together, millions of them, waiting patiently for light. Cones are the cells of daytime. They love colour. They live in the centre of the retina, mostly in a tiny dip called the fovea. When you stare at something, it's your cones that take over, feeding your brain with sharp details and bright hues, blue sky, red apples, golden sand, but cones need light. As the sun goes down, they grow quiet. They cannot hear the soft song of darkness. That's when the rods begin to sing. Rods live in the outer edges of the retina. They don't care about colour. They don't see fine detail, but they are sensitive. So sensitive they can respond to a single photon of light. They bloom in twilight. They see in shades of grey, in motion, in difference, and when your pupils widen, when your blink slows, and when the outlines of the world begin to shimmer instead of shine, it is the rods taking over. This exchange, the gentle handoff from cones to rods, is part of a process called dark adaptation. It's not immediate. It takes time. In bright light, your cones dominate, your pupils narrow, and the world is crisp and full of contrast. But move into a dark room, or walk outside under stars, and your body must adjust. Your pupils widen first. Then the rods begin to wake, increasing their sensitivity minute by a minute. It can take up to 30 minutes for your eyes to fully adapt. Until then, you see only dim impressions, and then, if you wait long enough, the shadows bloom into clarity. This is not just a change in how we see, it's a change in how we feel. The cone world is sharp, confident, full of facts. The rod world is soft, uncertain, full of suggestions. One is daylight thinking, the other is moonlight dreaming, and both live within us, switching places with every rising and setting sun. But rods and cones don't work alone. They sit at the beginning of a long, quiet network. Bipolar cells, ganglion cells, horizontal cells, all passing information along, adjusting it, blending it, softening it, sharpening it. By the time the signal leaves your eye and travels down the optic nerve to your brain, it has been edited and shaped, like a poem refined line by line. What began as light has become vision. The way these two kinds of cells divide the world says something about how life evolved. The cones likely came later, allowing creatures to enjoy the richness of daylight. But the rods, those whisperers in the dark, they are older. They belong to a time when the world was dimmer, when survival meant sensing the faintest glimmer of movement. They taught the first eyes to wait, to watch, to feel rather than see, and that ancient memory still lives in you. When you walk at dusk and the world shifts to monochrome, when you step into a dark room and wait for the shapes to return, when you stare at the stars and they sharpen slowly. In all those moments, it is the rods who guide you. Not because you chose them, but because your body remembers. There is beauty in this transition, this slipping from colour to shadow. The cones step down with grace, the rods rise without hurry, and you, without realising, become part of the rhythm. You stop focusing, you start sensing, you stop naming, you start knowing. The sharp becomes soft, the loud becomes quiet, the bright becomes deep. It's a return, not a loss. In the world of nature, this change matters deeply. Animals with more rods can see better at night. Owls, cats, deer. They rely on this system to move without sound, to respond without hesitation. Their eyes are built for this balance, their lives unfolding in the grey zones of dawn and dusk. And though our eyes are built more for the day, we still carry enough of that older design to understand, we still shift when the light does. We still become someone slightly different after sunset. The cones give us the fireworks, the gardens, the painted skies. The rods give us the whispers, the shadows, the hush of moving water in the dark. Together, they form the full story of sight. Not one replacing the other, but one stepping back so the other can lead. And when that happens, when your vision slips quietly into grayscale, when the bright colours fade and motion becomes your guide, you begin to see the colour of silence, not absence, not emptiness, but a different kind of richness. The kind that doesn't speak loudly but hums gently, the kind that doesn't dazzle but lingers. This is what the rods teach. This is the gift of shadow. This is how your body learns to read the world when the lights grow dim. Let's wander further into this quiet conversation between rods and cones, into the soft science that unfolds when light fades and silence settles on the edges of vision. The eye doesn't merely look, it listens. And in that listening, the rods and cones don't argue for attention. They take turns. They understand rhythm. The cones speak during the day loud and clear. The rods reply at night, low and slow. This duet is not competition, it's collaboration, a graceful exchange written into our biology. The cones come in 3 types, each sensitive to a different range of light wavelengths: short, medium, and long. We often call them blue, green, and red cones, even though their sensitivities overlap. These 3 cells create the vivid world we know. Every sunset, every flower, every bright painted door. They are the reason a field can shimmer with spring, the reason a child's drawing glows with impossible oranges and greens. They allow for contrast, for art, for emotion tied to hue, but this rich palette only blooms under light. The cones are delicate. They need photons in great numbers. As soon as the world dims, they lose their footing. They don't disappear, but they step back, letting the rods take over. And while rods see in shades, their power is unmatched in the dark. They outnumber cones by over 100 million cells in the human retina. They live around the edges, not in the fovea, which is why peripheral vision grows stronger in darkness. Try it. Look slightly away from a dim star, and you might see it better than if you look straight on it. That's the rod speaking. This phenomenon is called the Purkinje shift. It's a change in how our eyes respond to light as it gets dimmer. In bright light, we are more sensitive to warm colours. Reds, oranges, yellows. In dim light, our eyes become more sensitive to cool colours, blues and greens. The rods, which dominate low-light vision, are especially tuned to blue wavelengths. That's why the world seems to turn silvery or bluish in the moonlight. Not because the world changes, but because the part of us that's seeing it has changed. And this shift doesn't only alter what we see, it alters how we feel. There's a mood to the rod world, a soft alertness, a kind of calm that carries just enough tension to stay awake. That's why night feels so different from day. It's not only the absence of sound or the lack of movement, it's the change in our perception. Colours gone, edges softened, motion more meaningful than shape. It's a world read in whispers instead of shouts. Other species experience this shift in ways even more profound. The nocturnal gecko, for example, has only cone cells, but they've adapted to operate in low light. Some birds, like owls, have mostly rods, giving them astonishing sensitivity to dim conditions. And certain deep-sea creatures rely on rods so uniquely tuned they can see bioluminescent patterns we can't even imagine. The balance of rods and cones in an eye is not random. It is sculpted by environment, by need, by evolutionary whispers that say, see only what matters here. And then there are species like the elephant hawk moth, able to see colours even in near darkness. Their cones are so sensitive, they operate at levels we would consider night. These creatures see a world we cannot, neither our rods nor our cones can match them. They remind us that vision is not universal. It is contextual, it is shaped by purpose, not perfection. Even among humans, the rod-to-cone ratio varies. Some people have slightly more cones and see colour more vividly. Others may rely more on rods and adjust faster to low light. And there are rare conditions, like rod monochromacy, where a person sees only with rods all the time. Their world is grayscale, sensitive to brightness, but are beautifully adaptive in dimness. These individuals often wear dark glasses in the day, but move with ease at night. They experience a different kind of beauty, a beauty made of texture and tone instead of hue. The balance between rods and cones reflects something deeper, a relationship between certainty and curiosity. Cones give us detail, they name things, they let us be precise. But rods give us mystery. They offer outlines, movement, suggestion. One world is labelled, the other is felt, and both are necessary. Artists and storytellers often work near this threshold. The best images aren't always those in sharp colour. Sometimes they are in shadows. The best tales aren't always told in daylight. They emerge beside campfires, where flickering light softens the world and lets the imagination stretch. In those moments, our eyes and our minds tiptoe toward the rod world. We begin to feel more than we see. So what happens when we honour both systems equally? When we let the cones give us joy during the day and let the rods lead us gently through the dark? We begin to see vision not as one thing, but as a cycle, a symphony of transitions, a trust in the body's ability to adapt, to change, to shift gracefully between one kind of knowing and another. That's what rods and cones offer us, not only sight, but balance, Not only vision, but timing. The ability to move between brightness and dimness, between colour and shadow, between detail and suggestion. They offer us the ability to see fully, not all at once, but across time, across light, across silence. And when we stop trying to see everything in high definition, when we let the edges blur, let the tones flatten, let the colour drain, we don't lose anything. We gain something else. We gain quiet. We gain depth. We gain the ancient hum of vision that doesn't need names or brightness, only patience. And now, as this story draws to its gentle close, let us sit quietly with what we've learned, not just about rods and cones, but about the way we see ourselves through the eyes we carry. Because the real gift of vision isn't found in light alone, it's found in change, in how we shift from one kind of seeing to another, moment by moment, without even knowing it. It's found in the grace of letting go of colour when the sky grows dark, in the peace of letting our eyes adjust rather than insisting the world stay bright. Rods and cones are not simply tools, they are timekeepers, messengers. They are the instruments of rhythm in a body that is always adapting. Every evening as the sun lowers, your cones begin to rest and your rods begin to rise, not as a backup system, but as a handoff. The day hands the world to the night, and your eyes respond with quiet precision. They do not panic at the dark. They remember it. They lean into it. They've done this every day of your life. And in this leaning, something else happens. Something harder to measure but easy to feel. When we stop seeing the world in full detail, we begin to experience it differently. We walk more slowly. We notice movement instead of edges. We become more aware of sound, of temperature, of presence. Our senses begin to compensate for the missing colour, not by sharpening, but by softening. And this softening is its own kind of clarity. That's what the rods offer us, a return to softness, not as weakness, but as attentiveness. They remind us that not everything needs to be seen clearly to be understood deeply. Sometimes, the blurry outline holds more feeling than the sharpest line. Sometimes the lack of colour makes the shape more meaningful. Sometimes a shadow tells us more than a spotlight ever could. And this idea, the wisdom of dimness, lives in every creature that shares the night with us. The barn owl whose eyes collect whispers of movement, the fox that sees in grayscale, yet knows the field like a story, the deer that freezes when something flickers. None of them see with perfection, but all of them see enough, and sometimes enough is more than plenty. It's just right. In the same way we humans don't need to see everything. We need to see what matters. We need to know when to focus and when to trust the blur, when to lean in and when to let go. The rods and cones inside our eyes know this already. They shift not because we tell them to, but because the light has changed. They respond to the world as it is, not as we want it to be. They surrender to the moment. Even in dreams, the influence of light and dark follows us. Studies show that people who spend more time in dim light, or who sleep without artificial lighting, often have richer, more detailed dreams. The brain, unburdened by constant stimulation, begins to play with shadows, with memory, with tone. This is not the brain inventing, it is the brain remembering what the rods already knew. That clarity is not always visual. That understanding can bloom in grayscale. And so, the final truth of rods and cones is this. Sight is not static. It is not one moment, frozen in colour. It is a symphony of light and silence, contrast and saturation, focus and softness. And every day your body plays this symphony without effort. Your eyes adapt, adjust, balance, not just to help you see, but to help you belong, to the sunrise and the sunset, to the colour and the shadow, to the loud brightness of day and the quiet dim of night, to the world as it is, changing, softening, becoming. So tonight, as the lights go low, notice the shift. Feel your pupils widen. Let your vision blur. Let the world grow quiet. And instead of reaching for more light, wait. Let the rods awaken. Let your eyes remember. Let the colour of silence return. You were never meant to live only in one kind of seeing. You were meant to flow between them, to know both the fire of brightness and the whisper of dusk. That's the gift. That's the story your eyes tell every time you close them, and every time you open them again. In the deep silence beneath the earth, where no light ever touches the walls, there are creatures moving with purpose. In the black folds of ocean trenches, where sunlight dies before it can arrive, there are lives unfolding in patterns older than time. These are the creatures that see without sight, who move through the world not with eyes, but with something quieter, something deeper, a kind of sensing that exists beyond light. This is not the absence of vision, it is the reinvention of it. And in their quiet lives, blind animals reveal a truth we often forget. You don't need light to know where you are. You don't need eyes to find your place. Close your eyes for a moment. The world changes, shapes melt, colours vanish, but sound remains, touch sharpens, awareness shifts. This is closer to how some creatures live always, not in darkness, but in a different kind of clarity. Vision, in the way we think of it, is only one path to knowing. There are others, and evolution, patient and curious, has explored them all. Take the blind cave fish, for example. Found in lightless caves across the world, in Mexico, in Thailand, in Africa, these fish are born with eyes, but as they grow, their eyes stop developing. Over time, the tissue is absorbed or sealed. Instead, other senses grow stronger. Their skin becomes exquisitely sensitive to vibrations. They use their lateral line, a row of tiny sensors along the body, to detect movement in the water, pressure changes, and even the outlines of nearby rocks or fish. In complete darkness, they do not flail. They glide, guided not by sight, but by the feeling of space itself. There are crabs, shrimp, and salamanders that live the same way, born into places where light has never been and never will be. They lose their pigmentation, becoming pale, almost translucent, but what they lose in colour they gain in sensitivity. Antennae lengthen, hearing refines, skin becomes a net for signals, and in some species, chemical detection improves. They can smell in water the way others might see with light. Their world is not dark. It is detailed, just in a different language. And deep in the ocean, where pressures crush and light disappears completely, there are creatures like the vampire squid and the Dumbo octopus, animals that don't rely on traditional vision, but instead detect bioelectric fields or interpret subtle flows in the water. Some have small vestigial eyes, others have no eyes at all, yet they feed, flee, mate, thrive. They are not incomplete, they are perfectly designed for where they live. Even on land, vision is not always the main guide. Moles who tunnel through soil their entire lives have tiny, almost hidden eyes, but their sense of touch, especially in the star-nosed mole, whose face blooms with soft, finger-like tendrils, is astonishing. These tendrils contain more than 25,000 sensory receptors, able to detect the shape and texture of prey in milliseconds. To us, the mole's face might look strange, but to the mole, it is a map more vivid than any sunset. And then there are bats, often thought to be blind, though they're not. Many bats can see, and some can even detect ultraviolet light, but their true mastery lies in echolocation, sending out high-pitched calls and reading the returning echoes. In those echoes, they build a three-dimensional picture of the world. Every leaf, every insect, every crevice is outlined in sound. To them, the world sings, and they see through that music. And this idea that vision can be replaced, reshaped, or even outgrown is not only remarkable, it's freeing. It reminds us that biology is not fixed, it's fluid. Life does not mourn the loss of sight. It adapts. It becomes something else, something beautiful. In the human world, we see echoes of this. People born blind often develop heightened senses of hearing, touch, and smell. Their brains adapt, their awareness stretches. Some can detect the size of rooms by listening to echoes. Others navigate streets, kitchens, forests, not with eyes, but with memory, practice, intuition. Their fingers read the world through braille. Their ears track the rhythm of traffic. Their skin senses shifts in air and space. Their lives are not less. They are full, simply different. What blind creatures teach us is that perception is not limited to sight. It is the gathering of information from the world in any way the body can manage. For them, light is not the gateway to understanding. Contact is. Pattern is. Pressure is. They trust the information that comes from within, from their own movement through the space around them. And they move not with fear, but with confidence built on something deeper than eyes. Imagine a world where we valued this kind of knowing, where instead of needing everything to be visible, we became more attuned to what could be felt, sensed, heard, remembered. Where we trusted that there are many ways to build a picture, and none of them require brightness. That's what the blind creatures of Earth already know. That vision is only one kind of clarity. That silence too can be full of shape. So the next time you walk in darkness, don't rush to turn on the light. Wait, let your ears lead, let your breath slow, let the air press gently against your skin and tell you something about the space you're in. That is a kind of seeing too, and you were built for it. Let us drift now into the subtle world of senses that do not depend on brightness, where the absence of sight does not mean the absence of knowing. In this world, movement becomes language, and silence becomes sound. Here, vision is not made of light, but of touch, pressure, and memory. And for those who live in these darkened spaces, whether underground, underwater, or in shadow, life is not quieter. It is simply tuned to different frequencies. The journey of evolution has always favoured what works, and when light is removed from the equation, the body does not despair. It begins to rewire. Nerve endings grow more sensitive. Reflexes become faster. Internal maps sharpen. In the blind cavefish, for example, the part of the brain normally responsible for processing visual input is repurposed. Instead of sitting idle, it adapts to enhance the fish's ability to interpret water movement, spatial shifts, and echoes. The brain does not cling to one way of working, it evolves. The Mexican tetra offers one of the clearest examples of this adaptation. In caves with no light, its eyes have vanished, but its awareness has grown. Its lateral line, the sensory system that detects vibrations and flow, has become more refined than in its surface-dwelling relatives. This adaptation allows it to school with others, navigate tight corners, and find food by following the disturbances created by other organisms. Its world is sculpted not by light, but by current, by shift, by the press of invisible waves. The same is true for many insects and invertebrates. Certain cave-dwelling spiders have developed elongated limbs not for movement alone, but to feel the vibrations in air or web strands. Some species of millipedes and centipedes, entirely blind, use the rhythmic tapping of their antennae to build a mental image of their surroundings, like touching the world piece by piece, moment by moment. In bats, echolocation is a masterpiece of non-visual perception. The sounds they emit bounce off the world and return with information about shape, distance, texture, and even velocity. They do not need to see the moth fluttering ahead. They hear its wing beats in echoes, and within milliseconds they respond. Not because they saw, but because they listened with precision so fine it might as well be vision. This principle, building a picture from sound, is not limited to animals. Some blind humans have learned a form of human echolocation, making soft clicking noises with their tongues and listening to the echoes that return from walls, curbs, trees. The brain learns to interpret these reflections just as it would visual input. In these individuals, scans show that the visual cortex becomes active during echolocation. The brain does not mind where the signal comes from, it only asks for meaning. The star-nosed mole is perhaps one of the most extraordinary examples of touch-based sight. Its star-shaped nose contains more than 100,000 nerve endings, each capable of detecting tiny changes in pressure, texture, and movement. When it touches an object, the signal reaches the brain in less than half the time it takes a human to recognize something by sight. The mole's brain processes these touches in a map-like way, turning tactile information into a high-resolution image. It sees with its face. Even snakes, while not blind, often hunt in darkness using infrared sensors, tiny pits that detect heat. To them, a warm body glows like a beacon in the cool night. Their prey may be silent and hidden, but the snake feels its presence through warmth. Vision in this context is not about light. It is about energy, about reading the invisible. These forms of perception remind us that seeing is not defined by eyes alone. It is the act of forming a relationship with the space around us. When light is unavailable, that relationship does not disappear. It shifts. It listens instead of looks. It senses vibration instead of shadow. It tracks airflow instead of outline. And this adaptability is not just a survival mechanism. It is an art. It requires attention, practice, trust. A mole navigating a maze of tunnels is not reacting randomly. It is reading the world with tools we rarely think to use. A blind spider isn't guessing where its prey is, it's reading the pulse of the air through the hairs on its legs. These are not crude approximations of vision. They are parallel systems of knowing evolved with the same care and complexity as sight. Human stories echo this truth as well. Musicians who are blind often develop a heightened awareness of space and vibration. Their instruments become extensions of their bodies. Their ears detect not only pitch, but distance, pressure, movement. The blind traveller remembers not just paths but textures underfoot, changes in air, the scent of trees in bloom. Their navigation is a symphony of senses, woven together to form a world that is not less complete, only less visible. And what all these stories teach us is this. We do not need to see everything to understand it. We do not need light to feel beauty. A child can laugh in the dark. A dog can find its way home through scent. A cave salamander can hunt in silence. The language of the world is not limited to the eyes. It speaks to any part of the body that's ready to listen. So when the lights go out, whether in a cave or a dream or a moment of pause, there is no need for panic. You are still connected to the world. You can still move, still breathe, still sense, and in that moment you might remember what blind creatures already know, that there is more than one way to see, and sometimes the deepest vision is the one that comes without light at all. Now let us settle into the final quiet of this story, a place where light has never entered, but where life thrives with exquisite awareness. In the softest corners of the earth, far from the brightness we rely on, creatures navigate, communicate, and even flourish without a single glint of sunlight. Their stories remind us of something deeply human, that knowing does not always arrive through the eyes. That perception, like life, finds a way. In the pitch-dark caves beneath mountains, in the endless night of the ocean floor, in the underground burrows and soil-woven tunnels, vision has been replaced with a different form of presence. Blind creatures do not stumble, they do not hesitate. They live fully, responding to their world not through image, but through vibration, temperature, flow, and scent. Their confidence tells us something we often forget. Vision is not seeing, it is understanding. Consider the cave salamander. It moves with caution, but not confusion. Each step is guided by the faintest pulse of water, the texture of stone, and the memory of the spaces it passed before. Over generations, its eyes have shrunk, sometimes sealed under skin. Yet its sense of direction remains. It is not learning to survive despite blindness. It has never needed sight to begin with. Its body listens to the cave, and the cave speaks in return. Or look to the eyeless shrimp in deep-sea vents. They cluster near thermal plumes, thriving in heat that would destroy most life. They don't see the vents, they feel them. They detect changes in temperature gradients with astonishing sensitivity, allowing them to find the warmest, richest zones in total darkness. Where we might search with lights and lenses, they simply move towards sensation. And then there are the worms of the abyss, soft and strange, whose bodies glow with their own bioluminescent signals. They may not see their light, but others do. In these ecosystems, communication is not always reciprocal. One creature signals, another responds. Vision becomes social, sensory, and sometimes asymmetric, meaning the message matters even when the sender cannot see it. Life goes on, trading messages in silence. This way of being, this trust in non-visual awareness, is not primitive. It is refined, and it has shaped the architecture of nervous systems in profound ways. Animals that live without sight often have enlarged parts of the brain devoted to other senses. Their tactile maps are detailed. Their auditory landscapes are rich. Their internal navigation systems are astonishing. They don't imagine their surroundings, they feel them into existence. For humans, this understanding opens a door. We live in a world dominated by vision. We read, we watch, we scroll, we define beauty through images, but there is a wisdom in stepping back from the visual world and listening instead. There are stories in the grain of wood beneath your fingers. There is direction in the whisper of wind along your cheek. There is safety in the rhythm of footsteps echoing down a hallway. And there is presence in the scent of rain before it falls. Blindness, when we speak of it, should never mean less. It should mean different. Just as the octopus navigates by feel, just as the mole maps the world through its skin, too can people without sight build stunning, complete experiences of the world. Musicians who play with emotion deeper than sound. Dancers who move with an internal compass of breath and space. Writers who sculpt memory into meaning without ever having seen a sunset. Their vision lives in language, sound, rhythm, and touch. Technology is beginning to catch up to this truth. There are wearable echolocation devices that translate distance into gentle pulses, tactile maps that convert cities into finger-sized pathways, AI-driven canes that sense motion, slopes, and even facial expressions. But perhaps the most powerful technology is the ancient one, the human body itself, adaptable, listening, capable of adjusting to almost any silence. When we open our ears, our hands, our awareness, we begin to understand what these animals have always known. There is more than one way to be alive. There is more than one way to know a space, find a home, sense a friend. Light is a gift, but so is darkness, not because it hides, but because it reveals a different kind of knowing, a slower one, a fuller one, a kind that does not rush. In the end, the lesson is not about blindness. It is about perception. It is about the many paths life has taken to feel the world. Whether with eyes or without, with light or without, with brightness or with breath, creatures have found their way, and that means we can too. So tonight, if you turn off the light and sit for a moment in that soft dark, know that you are not lost. You are returning to the part of you that remembers how to listen, to the part of you that knows space through stillness, to the part of you that doesn't need to see to understand, because the world is not always something to be looked at. Sometimes it's something to be felt, and sometimes the clearest vision is the kind that never needed light to begin with. High above the world, far from cities and lights, the sky stretches wide and deep, filled with stars that flicker like thoughts across a quiet mind. For much of human history, those stars were more than distant fires. They were guides, companions, and calendars. We watched them not just with wonder, but with attention. And beneath that sky, with only the moon to cast its glow, our eyes learned to stretch toward the light. Not the brilliant daylight of the sun, but the soft, scattered whispers of starlight. In that ancient darkness, our vision was shaped, slowly, patiently, beautifully. To see in the dark is not about brightness. It is about sensitivity. It's about building systems that don't collapse when light becomes scarce. Evolution has done this not by adding more power, but by refining response, by developing machinery so delicate it can register a single photon, the smallest unit of light. Inside your eye, in the rods that wait quietly for evening to fall, this sensitivity lives. One photon enters and a rod responds. That is how soft the machinery is. That is how deeply it listens. But rods don't work alone. They are connected in vast, intricate networks. Each rod cell sends its signal to a bipolar cell, which gathers messages from many rods, enhancing even the faintest patterns. Then the bipolar cell passes the signal along to ganglion cells, which carry it to the brain. This layering, this quiet amplification, is not noisy. It's subtle. It prioritizes clarity in dimness over detail in brightness. That's why in low light you lose sharpness but gain awareness. The shapes blur but the motion becomes meaningful. It's in this dim world that starlight becomes enough. Your eyes don't need to create light. They only need to recognize its presence, and they are built to do exactly that. Long before we had candles or electricity, our ancestors moved beneath open skies. Their vision adapted to follow shadows, to read silhouettes, to sense movement at the edge of awareness. This wasn't superhuman. It was simply human. A skill we still carry, hidden under the glare of artificial light. The starlight sensor is not just a biological tool, it's a memory. A memory of nights by rivers, of forests alive with rustles, of travellers charting their path by constellations. Before clocks, the sky told time. Before maps, it told direction. And our eyes responded, not to the stars directly, but to the light they offered, soft and slow. That light was enough to keep moving, to keep watching. In many animals, this sensitivity has been perfected. The tawny owl can hunt in conditions 6 times dimmer than what a human needs to see. Its retina is almost entirely rods, and the shape of its eye, long and deep, gathers more light than a round one could. The result is a vision so attuned to shadow that it can detect the twitch of a mouse through leaves under moonlight. Some frogs have pupils that adjust so dramatically they appear to reshape the entire eye. These slits open wide in darkness, allowing light to pour in. Combined with a dense array of rods, the frog sees well in low light, not in colour, not in fine detail, but in movement and depth, just enough to leap. And then there's the elephant shrew. whose retina includes both rod and cone-rich areas optimized for different light conditions. It lives in the margins of day and night, darting between brightness and dusk. Its eyes handle both, switching between detail and shadow seamlessly. It's not just that it sees well, it sees flexibly. In humans, this flexibility remains. Quiet, patient, waiting. You felt it before, the moment after the lights go out, when you pause, when shapes start to return. That's not your imagination adjusting, that's biology remembering. Your starlight sensors waking slowly. Even your brain supports this shift. In bright light, the visual cortex interprets fine detail and colour. In low light, it prioritizes movement, contrast, and depth. It reallocates attention. It tunes itself. Not because you ask it to, but because it's part of the design. And that design is not about perfection. It's about possibility. Your eyes weren't built to dominate the world. They were built to belong to it, to match its rhythms, to adapt to its changes. And the starlight sensor, the machinery for seeing in the dark, is proof of that. It doesn't work in isolation. It works in context, in silence, in trust. It's why we sleep better under stars, why candlelight feels calming, why twilight brings not fear, but a kind of softness. The starlight sensor inside you isn't just about sight. It's about peace, about letting go of the need to see everything clearly and learning instead to feel your way through. So, tonight, if you find yourself beneath the open sky, don't rush to light a path. Let the stars do what they've always done. Let your pupils widen. Let the rods rise. Let your body remember the light that doesn't blaze but waits, that doesn't demand attention but rewards patience. You don't need a flood of brightness, you need only a flicker. One photon, one quiet signal, and everything begins again. Let's drift deeper into this soft machinery, into the elegant design that allows living things to see not by force but by waiting. Because the beauty of starlight vision isn't in how brightly something glows, but in how quietly it's noticed. The creatures that see best in the dark don't search with urgency. They observe with patience. They don't flood the world with artificial light. They attune themselves to the traces that were already there. And the structure of their eyes tells the full story of how evolution learned to listen for the quietest signals. At the center of this story is amplification without distortion. In pitch darkness, a single photon may be all there is. A rod cell, triggered by that one particle of light, must not only detect it, but also make that signal count. It does this with a cascade, a biochemical reaction, where one photon leads to thousands of molecules responding, amplifying the signal until it is strong enough to register. This is how starlight becomes visible, not because it's powerful, but because the eye makes space for it. To make this work, the system must be quiet. In science, this is called a low noise floor. If a rod cell were firing constantly without reason, the signal would be drowned out. So evolution made the rods disciplined. Most of the time, they wait in silence. They don't react until something truly happens. This waiting, this restraint, is what makes starlight sight possible. The eye, in this way, is not greedy. It is generous with its silence. And this same principle shapes the rest of the system. In low-light vision, multiple rod cells may converge on a single bipolar cell. That means several small signals can add together. The result is a kind of cooperative seeing. No one rod carries the full story, but together, they speak loudly enough to be heard. This summation increases sensitivity but lowers detail. You won't see the edges sharply, but you will feel the motion. You won't read the letters, but you'll know something moved. This trade-off between clarity and sensitivity is built into the architecture of vision. And in darkness, it's a gift. Because when colour fades and sharpness falls away, what remains is presence. You begin to sense the rhythm of movement, the pulse of shadows, the tilt of space. You begin to see not with shape, but with story. Some animals have pushed this to incredible levels. The elephant hawk moth can see colour at night, one of the few known species with that ability. Its eye contains cone cells that operate in low light, allowing it to navigate by flower hues even under the moon. This is not typical, it's rare, but it shows that evolution, given the right pressures, can build anything. Even colour into a world of grey. And then there's the helmet gecko. This nocturnal reptile has pupils that can contract into pinhole-like slits during the day and expand massively at night. Its retinas are rich in rods, but also contain specialized cones that function in low light. What this gecko sees is not known in full, but its adaptation suggests that it views the world in gradients, subtle shifts of light that form a map of where to move, where to pause, where to strike. In humans, we often think of our vision as a daytime tool, and in many ways it is, but that's not the whole story. Our eyes are deeply capable of adaptation. Not only do the rods awaken in the dark, but the brain shifts how it interprets what they send. It stops demanding detail and starts appreciating gesture. It listens to the movement of light across a surface, to the way something flickers at the edge of sight. This shift changes not only how we see, but how we feel. Twilight, dusk, and night are not just different in light, they are different in mood. There's a reason poetry is written in the evening. There's a reason stories are told at night. Our bodies slow, our eyes relax, our focus widens. We stop trying to control the scene, we begin to accept what is offered. And in that acceptance, the starlight sensor inside us starts to glow, not with brightness, but with attention. When you walk into a dark forest or sit beneath an open sky, your eyes are not struggling. They're transforming, letting go of the need for colour, letting go of the craving for precision, embracing a different kind of seeing, the kind that trusts shadows, the kind that follows motion like a breath. There is even a kind of learning that happens in this light. Artists and naturalists who spend time in low-light conditions report noticing details they never saw in daylight. The texture of bark, the softness of fog, the glow of moss under starlight. It's not that these things are invisible in day, it's that our attention is different. Our eyes, when freed from detail, start to see in layers, in atmospheres, in gradients. This change is not something we must train for. It's already within us, built into our retinas, stored in our neurons. It is part of the same story that allows a child to sleep better under a night sky than under a lamp. The same story that makes firelight feel more sacred than neon. The starlight sensor is not about what we see. It's about how we feel when we stop trying to see everything. So if you find yourself in the dim, don't reach for clarity. Reach for presence. Trust your eyes to adapt. Trust your body to listen. Trust the world to reveal itself slowly. And let yourself be part of it, not as an observer demanding light, but as a partner dancing with what is already there. Now let us close this story in the hush it deserves, not with answers, but with awe. The starlight sensor, tucked inside the soft machinery of your eye, is not a miracle of modernity. It is a whisper from the past. It is older than firelight, older than stories, older even than the stars we see today. It was shaped by the long stretch of night when our ancestors looked up, not to marvel, but to navigate. And in their watching, in their waiting, their eyes learned how to listen. This final part of seeing in the dark is not about rods or cones. It is about remembering. Remembering that vision was never about seeing everything clearly. It was about seeing enough, just enough to take one step, just enough to feel the shape of a world too big to fully grasp. The human eye, with all its limits, is a masterpiece of balance. It does not chase extremes. It finds a place between. It welcomes light when it comes, and when the light fades, it does not shut down. It shifts. This shift is not just physical, it is emotional. As brightness fades, our mind also softens. Our thoughts slow, our breath deepens. There is something ancient about twilight, something that calls us inward. In low light, we speak more gently, we listen more closely, we trust more readily in tone than in form. Perhaps it is because our ancestors gathered at dusk to share what they had seen by day, or perhaps it is simply because in the dark we learn to be present. Starlight vision, then, is not only a biological tool, it is a mood, a mindset, a way of being in the world with less grasping and more grace. A fox doesn't squint for clarity. It pauses and waits. An owl doesn't chase the full shape of its prey. It reads the tiniest tremor of shadow. These creatures are not seeing less. They are seeing differently. And that difference is what allows them to thrive where others might hesitate. In our lives, we often resist the dim. We flood rooms with brightness. We light streets and screens and hallways with the kind of certainty that never allows our eyes to rest. But in doing so, we forget what our vision is capable of. We forget that the rods still know how to respond to softness, that our pupils still know how to widen with the dusk, that the starlight sensor inside us is not lost, it is simply unused. When we step into a moonlit field, or turn off the lights and look through a window, we reactivate that quiet power. Shapes appear not as they were, but as they are under stars. Gentler, simplified, honest. Our brains, relieved of the task of sorting colour and sharpness, begin to dream instead. We imagine, we reflect, we let go. Even the language of the stars follows this rhythm. Constellations were never meant to be photographs. They were meant to be stories, patterns made visible only because we looked with eyes tuned to contrast, not detail. The Big Dipper, Orion, the Pleiades. These are not clusters we found with science. These are dreams we drew with ancient vision, under skies unspoiled by glare. So what does it mean to see by starlight truly? It means allowing yourself to be part of the dark, not separate from it. It means understanding that vision is not about dominance. It is about harmony. The eye is not a spotlight. It is a mirror, a translator, a listener. It does not shine. It reflects. And what it reflects, when light is scarce, is the shape of wonder itself. There is a grace in not needing to see everything, in not knowing what lies ahead, in letting the night unfold as it will, and trusting your senses to follow. This is what the starlight sensor was made for, not for seeing the world as it is in day, but for discovering how it lives when the light grows quiet. Even today, as we build machines that see in the dark, thermal cameras, night vision goggles, LiDAR systems, there is something we cannot replicate, the emotional stillness of the human eye adjusting to starlight. Machines may capture more, but they feel less. And that feeling, that calm that settles when we stop pushing against the dark, is part of the gift. So tonight, or any night, when the sky is clear and the lights are low, step outside. Give your eyes time. Let the cones sleep. Let the rods rise. Let the world simplify, soften, shift. You don't need the stars to shine brighter. You only need to stop rushing them. They are already there, waiting, just like your eyes. And when they do appear, faint, flickering, ancient, you will know that the starlight sensor still works, that your body still remembers, that you are still capable of wonder without the need for brightness, that even in darkness there is more than enough to see. In the vast silence of space where stars drift in slow orbits and galaxies bloom like frozen fireworks, there is no noise, no hum of wind, no crash of ocean, no footsteps echoing through valleys. And yet the universe is not empty. It moves, pulses, folds, and expands. It speaks in a language softer than sound, one made of gravity and light, of particles and echoes. If you could sit in that silence long enough, you'd begin to feel the shape of it pressing gently against your thoughts. This is not a silence of absence. It is a silence of reflection. The universe, for all its infinite distances, is full of mirrors. Not the polished kind you hang on walls, but soft, invisible ones. Mirrors of energy, mirrors of time. Black holes reflect mass into motion. Galaxies reflect dark matter into spin. And in the smallest of spaces, quantum particles reflect possibilities into presence. It is all a reflection. And what it reflects, always, is itself. Light is one way the universe shows its face. Every beam that reaches your eye, from a candle or a comet, is a traveller from somewhere else. When you look up and see a star, you're not seeing it now. You're seeing it as it was. Light is not immediate, it carries memory. And in that delay, the universe is not showing you what it is, but what it has been. The night sky is a mirror of the past, spread gently above you, telling stories in tiny flickers. But mirrors are not only made of glass or light, they are made of rhythm. The orbit of moons around planets, the folding of galaxies in spirals, the repetition of atomic structure across crystals, these patterns reflect themselves across scale, from the spinning of electrons to the turning of planets. The dance is the same. It echoes again and again in silence. And in that silence something else appears. Order. Not the kind that shouts its presence, but the kind that emerges slowly. The Fibonacci spiral in a seashell. The branching of rivers and veins. The hexagon in snow and honeycomb. These are not coincidences. They are reflections. echoes of the laws that sculpt the universe, repeated in every scale, every system. We do not always see them, but they are always there. Even time reflects. It loops and stretches, bends around gravity, folds near massive stars. Einstein's equations don't describe a ticking clock, they describe a fabric that moves depending on where you stand, how fast you travel, how heavy your surroundings are. That fabric holds echoes. It reflects light, yes, but also possibility. In this way, time is not a line, it's a lens. And at the heart of this reflection is a strange truth. The universe sees itself through us. The same atoms that drift through galaxies drift through our bodies. The carbon in your bones was forged in a star. The calcium in your teeth, the oxygen in your breath, each began as cosmic dust, cooled and gathered into the form that became you. You're not just in the universe, you're part of its mirror. Even your thoughts, those soft inner flickers of awareness, are made possible by structures born in space. Neurons fire because of electricity. Electricity flows because of charge. Charge exists because the universe allowed it to. And so, when you pause to wonder, when you sit in silence and feel the press of the stars in your chest, that is not imagination, that is reflection. This reflective nature of reality isn't something new. It has been known in quiet ways by ancient minds. Poets spoke of stars as eyes. Philosophers wondered if the cosmos could think. Mystics said the universe was a mirror in which the soul sees itself. And now, science tells us that their metaphors were not far off. We do not merely observe the universe, we participate in it. Every observation is a ripple, every thought is a small change in the whole. Even on Earth, the idea of reflection shapes how we measure and explore. Telescopes gather faint light from distant galaxies and reconstruct their shape. The James Webb Space Telescope, orbiting in silence, peers through infrared mirrors to see the earliest stars. Its gold-coated eyes do not create images. They reflect what the universe offers, patiently, precisely. So when you sit in the quiet of night, looking at the sky, or simply closing your eyes, remember this. You are part of a system that reflects itself at every level. Your breath is shaped by air, shaped by plants, shaped by sunlight, shaped by fusion in stars. Your thoughts are shaped by brains, shaped by chemistry, shaped by molecules, shaped by gravity, shaped by time. And the silence you hear is not empty. It is full of mirrors, some too vast to comprehend, others small enough to live inside your chest. This is the dark mirror, not a tool of vanity, but a window of belonging. It does not show what you look like. It shows that you are part of everything that is looking. Let us move gently now into the deeper folds of the mirror, into the quiet places where space bends and thoughts echo. Because reflection in the universe is not a surface trick, it's a pattern written into its deepest layers. When we say the universe reflects itself, we don't mean it glances in passing. We mean that it folds back on itself, again and again, like light bouncing endlessly between two stars. What it reflects is not just matter, it's behavior, shape and memory. Gravity, for example, is a kind of mirror, not of light but of motion. Every time something falls, it's responding to the curve of space around it. A planet's orbit is not a chase. It's a falling that never finishes, and the path it takes, elliptical, slow, precise, is a reflection of mass and momentum. Nothing escapes this. Not light, not time, not even silence. Black holes are the most extreme mirrors of all. They do not reflect light, but they reflect reality. When something nears a black hole, time slows. Space stretches. Information changes form. The event horizon, the edge of no return, is like a one-way mirror. From the outside, we can only guess what happens within, but the black hole remembers. It holds the imprint of everything it has swallowed. Not as shape, but as shadow, as a reflection of energy curved into darkness. Quantum particles also reflect something strange. When observed, they choose a state. Before that, they are many possibilities, shadows of themselves. This means that what is observed is not just a product of the particle, but of the observer. Reality reflects attention. What we look at becomes more real. What we ignore remains in waiting. In this way, even our gaze is a mirror. And at the largest scale, galaxies themselves mirror one another. They spiral, collide, reform. The shape of one can echo the shape of another billions of light years away. These are not copies. They are resonances, like chords struck in different instruments but played in the same key. Even Earth holds mirrors of space. The auroras, green and violet waves in the sky, are the result of charged particles from the sun meeting Earth's magnetic field. A solar storm becomes colour. What began in the silence of the sun reflects in shimmer above frozen ground. And then there is us. Our thoughts mirror memory. Our feelings mirror what we've felt before. Our dreams mirror longing. Our breath mirrors the wind. The heart too reflects rhythm. It does not invent its own pace. It responds to light, to time, to silence, to touch. You are a house of mirrors, each part of you shaped by echoes of what has already been. And so, in stillness, when you feel something familiar in the stars, it's because they are not strangers. They are your ancestors, your dust, your beginning. Their light may be old, but the reflection it casts in your eyes is always new. In the dark mirror of the cosmos, everything is watching and everything is seen. Now let us bring this quiet reflection to rest, where the universe folds not only around stars and space, but softly around you. Because what we find in the end is not a cold, empty cosmos, but a patient one. A cosmos that offers us pieces of itself, not all at once, but gently, like light delayed across time. The dark mirror does not ask to be solved, it asks to be felt. When you breathe beneath the night sky, you're not separate from it. You're part of the reflection. Each breath carries oxygen shaped by ancient stars. Each heartbeat is an echo of motion that began before you were born. You do not merely live in the universe, you complete its circuit. Mirrors in nature rarely give back exact images. Instead, they soften edges, stretch shapes, blend outlines. The surface of a lake, the glaze of ice, the shimmer of heat on distant asphalt. These are not distortions, they are translations. The universe reflects itself not in detail, but in gesture. The dance of galaxies and the flutter of a leaf both trace the same invisible wind. And within that soft mirroring, silence becomes a kind of signal, a space where awareness forms. The universe has never needed to shout. Its echoes are long and low, its meaning unfolds slowly, like a seed remembering how to bloom. And you too unfold in silence, in stillness, in darkness. So if the world feels loud, bright and hurried, remember this. The deepest truths often live in the dim, in the quiet, in the in-between. Let yourself rest in that reflection. Let your thoughts grow soft. Let the starlight reach you without explanation. Because the dark mirror does not need to answer. It only needs to remind you, you belong. What you see above is not the end of the world, it is the beginning of yourself.